Hey YouTube, you are about to watch a message from one of our weekend experiences at Tethered. The weekend experience is a 100% digital event with 100% real people in the chats ready to talk to you, to connect with you, to pray with you. There's also other elements besides just this message, but we want to make this message of hope and truth available to you to help you in your walk with Jesus. If you want to learn more about how to attend one of those weekend experiences, more about who Tethered is, what our mission is, where we're going, and other resources and ways to connect with us, you can find all of that at tethered.online. But for now, we hope you enjoy this message. Yes, welcome to our weekend experience. We are in the second installment of our current series, What If?, looking at the next 5 years of your life. And we're asking a big question: why is change so difficult? That is the question we're going to answer today. And we're asking ourselves, who do I want to be in the year 2026? When that year rolls around, where do I want to be? Because I believe you can accomplish next to anything in a mere 5 years. We're going much deeper than New Year's resolutions here. We want to set in motion a better version of you. Here's what you're going to want to do. We're going to give you some practical steps at the end of this lesson, but you definitely want to stick around towards the end because I'm going to let you know how you can get your hands on a coffee on me. Free coffee. I mean, why wouldn't you want to stick around to figure out how you can get a hold of that deal? Let's get into this lesson, and I'm going to talk about two men real quick. Two men that you can find in your Bible. And I don't know how familiar you are with your Bible, if you read it often or if you can't remember the last time you read it, but there are some remarkable stories in those pages. And I want to talk about two men that are found, two stories that are found in those pages. We're going to do this in about 5 minutes. We're going to run through these two guys' stories in about 5 minutes. Elijah and Elisha. I know they sound extremely familiar. Their names are almost identical, as if the Bible wasn't complicated enough, but we're going to talk about these two guys. Elijah, the mighty miracle worker, alongside people like Moses, right? Let my people go, the splitting of the Red Sea. Not the same guy, but a prophet, one who worked alongside with God, and very tough shoes to fill. I mean, very powerful man. And then you have Elisha, who's kind of like the mentee. He's the one who's eventually going to be a prophet, who's eventually going to try to fill Elijah's shoes. God chooses him, and he tells Elijah, go find Elisha. And that's where our story picks up in 1 Kings 19. So 1 Kings 19, verse 19, so he, Elijah, departed from there and found Elisha, the son of Shaphat. I know you were wondering who his father was. He was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen in front of him. That probably means next to nothing to you. Wow, this guy has a lot of cows. Real cool. All you really need to know, it's a sign of wealth. It'd be like if you pulled up to someone's house and they had like 15 John Deere tractors. And it's like, okay, you got money. You really like John Deere. I get the point. Okay, verse 19, something weird happens. Elijah comes up to Elisha. He has his 12 pairs of oxen, and he throws his coat on top of him. Not because he wants to kidnap him, but because he wants to initiate him into a mentoring relationship. This is what this act meant. It's kind of like, hey, come under my coat, I'll take care of you. It's like passing a lightsaber to a Padawan, like you are worthy. You can hold the saber in your hand, whatever their accent is. Okay, so he puts his cloak around him. Hey, Elisha, come with me. Elijah, I'm going to teach you the ropes. Elisha in verse 20 says, hey, let me kiss my father and mother, and then I'll follow you. Basically, he's embracing what following Elijah means. Like, this is a dedication. This isn't like something you do on a Saturday. It's a change of career. It's an altering of his life. So let me go say goodbye to the people I'm saying goodbye to. And then verse 21, Elisha, he arose and went with Elijah and assisted him. And Elisha becomes Elijah's servant. Right there, 2 Kings 19, that's where that happens. Now, we only know basically one verse of what Elisha did under the mentoring of Elijah. 18 years he was under him. And this is what we have. 2 Kings chapter 3, verse 11. He poured water on the hands of Elijah. That's it. No glow, no glitter here, just a man serving consistently, pouring water on the hands of Elijah. That's essentially what we know Elisha did while he was under Elijah for 18 years. And then the third movement, first movement, Elijah taking Elisha, throwing his coat around him. Second movement, Elisha pouring water on Elijah's hands, serving him for 18 years. And now the third movement, 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 9. Elijah said to Elisha, "What should I do for you before I ascend to heaven?" He's basically saying, like, my time's up. You have done worthy. You are about to ascend, about to fill my shoes. What do you want? And Elisha responds, "Double portion of your spirit in me." Wow, what an ask, right? Like, you have done remarkable things, Elijah. You have God's Spirit working inside of you. I want double fold. I want to be able to do even more. This isn't like a one-up. This is like, I want to continue your work and take it even further. And then the story gets extra dramatic here, right? If you think the Bible is boring, go read the rest of that story for yourself. You're going to see a fire and chariots and ascending into heaven. It's wild. But my point, the point we want to pull out, are three movements in the story of Elijah and Elisha, because those three movements have a lot to tell us about the change that we so drastically desire in our life and why change is so difficult to initiate. Because here's the thing. Point number one, it's going to take drastic action to get to where you want to be. Let me say that again. It's going to take drastic action to get to where you want to be. Elisha had to take a drastic action to leave everything that he had. I mean, this was a dramatic act. He had to leave his wealth. He had to leave a promise of fulfillment, of comfort, of fortune. He had to leave all of that behind him. I mean, talk about ripping a page out of Cortez's book, right? If you don't know that story, when Cortez landed with his men in basically Mexico, the Aztecs' land, he landed and burnt the ships and looked at them burning with his men and say, "Hey, guys, no turning back now. This is our new home. You can't go back." Drastic action. So why is drastic action necessary? Why is it necessary at the beginning? And it's necessary because of what Sir Isaac Newton taught me in the 7th grade with the first law of motion. Now, you may not remember the first law of motion off the top of your head. I don't blame you. I had to look it up myself. It goes like this. Objects will remain at rest or in uniform motion in a straight line unless compelled to change its state by the action of an external force. That is called inertia. A lot just hit you at the same time. Essentially what that means, say this table is sitting here. This table, if I come back 100 years from today, this table is going to be right here. It's going to be more rusted. Maybe the carpet's going to disintegrate in that time. But if nothing moves this table in that 100 years, nothing external touches it, it's going to stay right here. It's called inertia. Essentially, everything in the universe is resistant to change. It wants to keep doing whatever it's doing. This table wants to keep sitting here for all eternity unless something else moves it. Actually, the word inertia, it comes from the Latin word lazy or idle, which makes total sense to me, right? Like our default mode, my default mode is to stay exactly where I am. It's comfortable. I don't have to put any extra effort into it. I just go with the flow like a lazy river. I'm just coasting down. I'm not having to carry a tube up a giant slide and change my altitude to get a thrill. Like it's lazy, it's easy, it's comfortable. That's what we're talking about. And this is why it's so difficult to change your life. Because all of the normal energy that you apply to change, it gets spent just overcoming inertia, just jolting change in something. Let me give you an example, easy example to capture what we're talking about. It takes more fuel to launch a rocket into space than it does the rest of the rocket's journey up there. It takes an extreme amount of energy to get the rocket moving, to go from a still state to a very fast state. It takes a ton of energy, more fuel than it will the rest of its journey up there. It's dramatic. That's why it's dramatic to come out of the waters of baptism soaked and fist bumping God. Like, I did it. It's dramatic to wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning so that you can go to the gym so you don't lose time with your family in the day. It's dramatic action to delete those toxic numbers from your phone, to break up with that person. It's dramatic to Open up to somebody about your struggle or an addiction with gambling or drinking or drugs or pornography. It's dramatic action. So, question for you. What dramatic action do you need to take today? 2 minutes on the clock. Put your thoughts in the chat. If you're watching us on YouTube, put your thoughts in the comment. What dramatic action do you need to take today? So it's pretty drastic to say, like, here's the line. No more, right? The time for half measures, it's over. Otherwise, the 5-year-old version of me, it will be no more than a more dramatic version of who I don't want to be today. Because we just dramatize. Remember, we talked about this last week. We romanticize who we'll be in the future, but we're just going to be a dramatic version of who we are today. And if I don't want to be a more dramatic version, I have to make change. I have to ask the question we're asking, what if? What if? What if? And that step begins, that what if question begins with dramatic action, begins dramatically. So first one, dramatic action. Second point that we learn from Elisha's story is it shows us the power of steady progression. 18 years of pouring water, steady progression. Like, it takes dramatic action to get that first domino moving, and then it's followed with consistency, consistency, consistency. Darren Hardy, in his book Compound Effect, look what he says about consistency. When conditions are great, things are easy. There aren't any distractions. That too is when most everyone else does great. It's not until situations are difficult, when problems come up and temptation is great, that you get to prove your worthiness for progress. As Jim Rohn would say, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. When you hit the wall in your disciplines, routines, rhythms, and consistency, realize that's when you are separating yourself from your old self, scaling that wall and finding your new, powerful, triumphant, and victorious self. So ask yourself, what's it going to take from you day in and day out? Like, you have to keep sowing. You have to keep watering. You have to keep dreaming, keep planning. I mean, this is where community comes in, filling your head with truth, reading your Bible, Jesus, prayer, saving money, working out, right choices, right people, going to Tethered, weekend experience, flourishing with God. It's consistency in these things. John Maxwell, he says it this way, improvement doesn't happen in a day, but it must be daily. You don't change you tomorrow. You won't. But what if, though? What if you could change you dramatically in 2, 3, 5 years? Would it be worth it? Would it be worth it? So, question for you again, for us in the chat, what habit, regardless of how small, Doesn't matter how small the habit. What habit could you be consistent in starting today? And finally, the third movement. When there has been drastic action followed by steady progression, you can then and only then enjoy momentum. So let's return to physics one last time to talk about momentum. The momentum of an object is its mass times its velocity. That means the more mass and or velocity the object has, the more momentum it has. Take, for example, a person skiing down a hill. The heavier that person is, or the more mass that person has, the faster that person is going down the hill. As a result, that person has a higher momentum. Momentum, in a more practical sense, is defined by the strength or force gained by motion or by a series of actions. This, my friends, is why so many motivation gurus and coaches and speakers, they come up with that one specific mantra all the time, and it goes like this: just start. Just start. Or Nike's version of it, just do it, right? Because starting something new, it's extremely hard. We've already talked about that. Starting something new is hard, but remember, when there is motion, there is momentum. Motion drives actions, and actions drive momentum. It's this like vicious cycle that you want to be in. And so as you go through actions, more and more motion it's generated. New ideas pop up, inspiration arises. Things that seemed impossible suddenly become more and more realistic. You create habits that are life-giving. They no longer take energy to maintain. It's an ongoing process. So how could you use this idea of momentum to your advantage? So ask yourself the question, what do I want to achieve? Who do I want to be? Who do I want to be in 5 years? What if? And be very clear. Like the more precise you are, the better. And we ended last week's message with how to set SMART goals. Goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. If you missed that lesson, go check out our YouTube page, look up the first what if, and watch that. It's going to give you a very practical template to setting goals. And today we talked about why it's so hard to make that change, because it takes drastic action, steady progression before we can enjoy momentum. Accomplishing who you want to be in 5 years is not going to happen overnight. It's not. It didn't happen that way with Elisha. It didn't happen that way with your parents, and it won't happen to you that way either. But asking the what if question is not just living in a daydream of hoping that things will change one day, but it's taking drastic action, relying on steady progression, and then finally riding momentum. But the question still lies, how do I form healthy habits? We're going to talk more about that next week, about how we can create stupidly easy habits in order to compound into greater change in our life. But for today, I want to give you 4 habits that I pulled from some TED Talks that you can begin today working towards your goal. Now, we don't have time to break down these TED Talks in more detail. So here's what we're going to do. On our YouTube channel in the description, I'm going to put links to all 4 of these TED Talks. And you can go watch them in more detail, go learn from them, be inspired by them. But I'm going to give you just a very quick 2-sentence on each one. So the very first habit that you can pick up to help you work towards your goal is learning to define your fears instead of your goals. Right? Tim Ferriss, he talks about this, and he calls it fear setting. It's a practice that can help break the cycle of the self-paralyzing situation we find ourselves in, because many of our fears are what hold us back from many of our goals. And so defining your fears, putting them on paper, establishing them, that's the easiest way to overcome them. The second habit that we can pick up is banishing the word fine. So Mel Robbins tells us that dirty little word, it lures us into thinking that subpar situations like being unfulfilled at work or carrying an extra 50 pounds or having a ho-hum relationship are good enough that you don't need to put any effort to change them. It's not true. Establish the habit of banishing that word fine. Fine is not good enough. We want to thrive the way God has designed us to be. Number 3, a third habit, approach your obstacles with curiosity. Curiosity is your best weapon against distraction. This comes from psychiatrist Judson Brewer. You can watch his TED Talk. But essentially, if you can identify whenever you're in your moments of procrastination, if you can identify and get curious, like why am I so distracted? Why is my mind going everywhere? If you can actually identify that thing and get curious about it, it's your easiest way to overcome it. And then finally, the third habit you can pick up today towards your goals is embrace your near wins. Your near wins. Behind every triumph, there are countless near wins. Those times when you come so close to success, but you don't quite get there. Those are valuable, says historian Sarah Lewis. They show you what worked and what can be improved on, and they give you a chance to iterate the right thing. So looking at those 4 habits and a reminder of what they are, Tim Ferriss talked about defining your fears instead of your goals. Mel Robinson talked about banishing the word fine. Judson Brewer, approaching your obstacles with curiosity. And then the 4th from Sarah Lewis of embracing your near wins. Which of those 4 habits could you begin doing today? God, our habits shape us, and we want to be people with healthy habits. Help us make drastic changes in our life. Help us maintain steady progression with healthy habits, and let us enjoy positive momentum that cascades us towards our goals. I want nothing more right now than to see everyone watching this to succeed in the ways that bring glory to you. Amen. We gave you a lot of content today, like drinking from an open fire hydrant, I know. But we at Tether, we believe in next steps, and we like to end every video in this series with steps that you can take away and start doing today. So easy next step is begin one thing today and end one thing today. We talked about why change is so difficult to make, and we talked about some habits that you can pick up, those 4 habits to begin working towards your goals. But what's one thing you could begin doing today? What's one small habit you could start doing today? And then what's one thing you need to stop doing today? What's one thing you need to stop doing today? So think about that and do it. That's your next step. Think of one thing to start and one thing to stop. The second thing is to join our texting reminders of the weekend experience. We don't want you to miss all of the awesomeness that we have here, the live chats, and to see these messages right off. But we get it, life gets busy. So there's a number down at the bottom of the screen right here. Just text REMIND, R-E-M-I-N-D, to that number right there on your screen, and you're going to get a weekly reminder of our upcoming messages, and then you're going to be front line for some exciting features we have through text messaging in the future. And then finally, the moment you've been waiting for, free coffee. If you are watching this on YouTube, this is the reason you want to be live and watching it with us in our weekend experience, because we value our conversations. We value all of you for watching this, and we want to show our appreciation for you. If you check out the chat right now, we just dropped in a QR code. That's to Dunkin' Donuts. We have preloaded some money on there. Go get you a coffee on us. In fact, go get you a coffee and go get a friend of yours a coffee and tell them, hey, I watched this online thing and they gave me free coffee and they told me to get this for you. See what happens from there. Tethered is a hybrid approach to following Jesus. We'll see you next week. We hope you enjoyed this message. If you want to find others like it, just click one of these boxes here and it'll take you straight there. You also want to make sure you subscribe and hit that bell button so anytime a new message comes up, you will be notified and you can go straight there. If you want to learn more about who Tethered is and what this hybrid approach of following Jesus is all about, you need to go check out our website. Just the link to that in the description below. We recognize that people live a slipstream between online and offline, and so we want to help you in your relationship with God to find and follow Him and a community offline and online. That's why Tethered exists. We hope you enjoy this video and others like it. God bless. Have a great week.